And as long as that's what they continue to do, it doesn't matter what they do with Batwoman, it's going to fail. There have already been reports that the young lady who took over the role from Ruby Rose has already become a problem.
Yeesh. Is that right?
Yes, she's already making demands, and Greg Berlanti and company are like, wait a minute, we just went through this with Ruby Rose. We're not going to put up with it from you. The only other thing that girl had been in, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the young lady, was the series God Friended Me. That was her only other Hollywood credit. I think she was miscast from day one. The new commercials and trailers that they've created for this show, they look abysmal. And to a point that Franz and I made months ago, the major thing that I think is a real problem is the character is starting out as a homeless person.
Yeah.
And you're going to take a homeless, not that this isn't possible, but the way the show is structured, you're taking a homeless person and turning them into a superhero.
And the superhero, this superhero comes from a super rich guy who used his super richness to develop the skills to become the Batman. And we're changing it and making it a homeless.
The bad part is, from what I understand, Ralph, and this might be a little off base with some of the information that is crossed the internet and things that I've already been told, but supposedly they're only going to deal with the departure of Ruby Rose's Kate Kane for the first few minutes of the opening episode when it comes back in January. And what happens is she finds one of Kate's old Batman, or I'm sorry, Batwoman uniforms, and decides to put this thing on, and eventually makes her way to Lucius Fox somehow because it has some form of a locator inside that's built into the material, and he finds out somebody is wearing this thing, and that's how she becomes the new Batwoman.
If I can jump in a little bit, I wanted to touch on a point that you made, a brilliant point that you made earlier when you were talking about Daredevil and Iron Fist, Kevin. Because I think one of the things that the difference in those series missed is the superhero genre, the superhero material. And I think one of the things that certainly hurt it with me, and I'm sure with a lot of other people as well, is the fact that Daredevil was a superhero. He wore the costume, he grew to the costume, and I wanted the costume to eventually get to 100% Daredevil. But it was a superhero genre TV series, whereas Iron Fist was just a guy with a power. Luke, same thing with Luke Cage, and the same. I agree with you with Jessica Jones. It never held my interest because it was just another TV show, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm a superhero type of guy, so it didn't appeal to me. And so sometimes what happens with the material, and one of the things that we fight for is the superhero genre. And I embrace when they follow that mantra. That's yes, this is a superhero. He wears the costume and he follows the dictates of the superhero. Now, with respect to the Batwoman, I have to say that I'm a little bit more forgiving. You and I, you both know, and Ralph, we've had that discussion many times. I'm against the changes, but I'm against all the changes across all boards. You know, I hate when Wolverine is 6'2" because he's not, and I hate the new Tom Holland Spider-Man because that's not Spider-Man, etc. So I'm typically against changes. This is a different situation for me, and I'm a little bit more forgiving of it because you're trying to produce a show. Your lead actress leaves. What do you do? And the choice is you could cancel the show, you could bring another person and pretend that the first one never existed, which I guess you could do, or you could just create another storyline. And in a way, they're sort of creating another storyline. Now, I get all the concerns that you're raising up. I kind of feel them, but I'm more forgiving of them, and I'm gonna wait and see what they deliver. And if it's no good, it's no good. But if it's good, it's good. But those types of things of how she comes to be the new Batwoman, it's a new character, it's a new storyline,
But it's
and
not a
so
superhero storyline.
well, so interestingly, it is more superhero because she's wearing the full costume. You know what I mean? She's she's super heroic. I don't know again how well that's going to be delivered, but yeah.
What I'm saying is, it's not a superhero storyline, and even the problem that you have with the actress indicates it's not a superhero storyline.
Mm-hmm.
This is an agenda-driven story, and what happened is that you've let these animals in, and they're destroying it from the inside. And I said animals for a reason. Because what's happening is, because there's nothing that you have to there's nothing you have to commit to, people can start making all kinds of demands. Because there's no canon, there's nothing sacred. So if there's nothing sacred, and I'm the new girl on the block, I'm making my demands. Chick, you just showed up. But the story, right? What we're talking about right now is a repeat of Captain Marvel. The Captain Marvel story follows us along the same lines. There's a whole big movement right now fighting about replacing Captain Marvel and not replacing Captain Marvel. I didn't like the Captain Marvel movie at all. I don't like that actress at all. I think she's a terrible actress. But she was making demands because she was in a position to make demands. And that poisoned the well. But I want to tell you about a story that I really like, which is the Star Trek. Star Trek is incredible. It's an amazing show. Don't you guys agree?
You mean the original Star Trek?
No, I mean the one that they call the Orville.
Oh, I love Orville, and I can't wait for it to come back.
I get you to catch my point, Franz.
I got the point.
All right.
Well, I was trying to But by the way, the Orville, wasn't it canceled, or is
it's coming back. It's just delayed because of all the issues with COVID.
Not only is it coming back, not only is the Orville coming back, the Orville has a cult following of people demanding that it come back.
Is that right?
Because the Orville is the replacement of Star Trek. You can set all the other Star Treks on fire, except I like the Next Generation. I thought it was cool. But you can set all the other ones, Discovery, whatever, and just do the Orville. Because it's canon. Even though it's not Star Trek, it follows the rules. And if you make a show that follows the rules, even the actors have to respect it. But if you don't even respect it, why should the actors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Ralph. But it's interesting because, again, it kind of reflects what I was saying earlier, to your point. In other words, agreeing with your point that the material survives, right? But sometimes at the expense of the characters.
Exactly.
So we've got the Orville, but we no longer have Star Trek.
We have Star Trek Discovery. Have any of you seen an episode of Star Trek Discovery?
In my mind and in my universe, Discovery does not exist. I am also a Star Trek fan, and I don't know why CBS is trying to hold on to this thing. It does not work. I'm sorry. It does not work. There's nothing about it that works. It's the same issue with Picard. Unfortunately, we may get a second season of Picard because they have people under contract, and CBS does not want to throw away the money. And I'm a fan of The Next Generation, okay? My favorite Star Trek is still Shatner, Nimoy, and company, but I like The Next Generation, and I did like DS9.
And let me tell you this. One of the other reasons why I love the Orville so much is because the Orville does all of the things that anybody with any kind of political thing wants to do. They do it. But they do it in the context of the story. Yes. It works. Nobody who really likes this is angry if it's a Black person or a gay person or a woman or whatever. It's about the story. You tell me a good story, I don't care what you do. And if you watch the Orville, Listen, I watched like 6 episodes straight of The Orville. I couldn't stop watching it because it was Star Trek. It was what I watched at 11 o'clock at night when Star Trek came on in reruns, and growing up in New York, that's what I was watching.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put it down. But that's not what the Batwoman show is.
Where is the Orville being aired now? I'm ashamed to say that I was a fan of that show. I was rooting for it, but I let go of it like years ago. I seriously thought it was over. Where is it being aired now?
It's not. You gotta go like Netflix or something.
Yeah, I think it's currently airing the first 2 seasons on either Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah.
But I've seen recent interviews with Adrian Palicki and McFarlane himself. Okay, and they're prepping everything to bring it back. And Ralph, to your point, one of the major reasons why the Orville works is McFarlane is an old Star Trek fan.
That's right.
He's a Star Wars fan as well, but he's a big Star Trek fan. He had even approached Fox about doing his version of Star Trek, and they told him no. That's how the Orville was born. He came to them with a story treatment and said, I want to do this. Wow. And they looked at him and said, this is not Family Guy. It's not American Dad. What are you talking about? And they wouldn't accept it. And he turned around and said, well, okay. He took off a couple of months because that was why at one point most of his animated stuff was actually in reruns because he wasn't available. He had stepped away from all of it. And he went away. He created the Orville. And when he came back, they were like, where the hell did you get this? And he said, this is a reworked version of what I gave you in the first place. And they couldn't turn it down. But like a bunch of idiots along the line of what you were saying, the animals in the uncontrolled zoo, they turned around and pulled the plug on it.
Yeah.
So it's what one friend said, and it's what you said too, Ralph. At one point, and it happened. We can determine when it happened. In the late 80s, early 90s, what happened is that the creator became more important than the material. And it was about what I wanted to do, the way I wanted to do it, whether it's from an agenda point of view, whether it's from a creative point of view, whether it's from whatever point of view. It's what I wanted to do rather than what was. And sadly, it came at a disrespect for the original material that put you there in the first place. It's what I call the Bryan Singer syndrome, right? Bryan Singer is assigned to do the X-Men. Who's the hell's more important, Bryan Singer or the X-Men? Who's hiring who? But Bryan Singer comes in and he thinks, well, this is garbage. Jesus Christ, the Dark Phoenix was garbage, Brian? Really? But he says, this is garbage, and let me do it in a way that's okay. And so he did his version of the X-Men. Sadly, the fan base swallowed it up because we were so hungry for the X-Men. And that precipitated, that started the whole thing. And that's where we are. There's good news on the horizon, as you said. Certainly Marvel is doing a nice balance of producing really good, interesting movies. I love the DC material. So there's hope in the horizon, but at the same time, it's everything is tenable, and we don't know where it's going to go from now.
Now, if I may, and I know part of this is backtracking, but to Ralph's original point about our initial topic concerning streaming and all that kind of thing, Patty Jenkins, the director behind the 2 Wonder Woman films, has recently said that she's already written Wonder Woman 3. It's just a matter of trying to figure out whether or not DC is going to allow her to make the movie. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, especially since DC is connected to Time Warner and the whole HBO Max thing, you do know that their Green Lantern series is on the way, correct?
Green Lantern series. Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get that confirmation.
They are doing a full-blown Green Lantern series. It is due to premiere by the end of next year, or at least by the end of next summer, because part of why they allowed one of your favorite people, Franz, to do what he's doing with Justice League is that Zack Snyder's new version of this is going to springboard the audience into your Green Lantern series.
Interesting.
And the reason why I bring up Jenkins with Wonder Woman 3 is that they've already said to her, well, if we do this, because of the state of theaters and theater supporters and what have you, would it bother you if Wonder Woman 3 went straight to streaming? And they've already gotten into an early debate about whether or not that's a viable thing. I want them both.
I don't know if you agree, Kevin, but I think that once COVID goes away, I think once the vaccine gets administered, and I think once we get past that hump, I think the movie theater will bounce right back. I think that experience of going to the movie theater is still very, 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 very valuable, and the blockbuster will exist at least for the foreseeable future. Eventually, that may change as TVs get bigger and so on and so forth, but I think it's going to bounce back, don't you think?
Honestly, part of me doesn't think so. Movie theaters may continue to exist, but at this point, I would almost say that they're going to exist in a very small, niche market, and the industry as a whole has probably died.
Tell me why.
I agree. I'm worried about the blockbuster. I'm worried about, like, if I'm James Cameron, I'm scared because I've got 4 what's that movie called again?
Avatar
movies. I got $500 million budgets. I'm trying to make $100 million opening nights. And listen, let's be honest. Half of the people are gonna steal Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. Let's just be clear. So Wonder Woman is not gonna have its blockbuster. At least what happens when you have to go to the theaters is you've got that first $100 million weekend. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman tanked in China. Right? I know it did bad in Japan, but it had an $18 million thing in China. They were hoping for 35 or 40 million. Yes. And this is it. The thing is going to come out on Christmas Day. On Sunday, people are going to be stealing it. So when that happens, who's going to bankroll a $500 million movie?
Mm-hmm. True. But I don't understand why you guys are concerned about the blockbuster happening again. It was literally last year that we were breaking box office records by people going to the movie theater. It was like last year. And so the numbers of Wonder Woman in China and Japan, there is COVID going on. So I don't know that once there's no longer a COVID issue, why
here's why
that we can't. Go ahead.
Here's why. Because James Bond tried to sell for $600 million. Nobody wanted it. James Bond is costing $1 million a month on the shelf because they're servicing the debt, right? So the question becomes, you're the investor for the next movie. And that movie, it's 6 months of pre-production, whatever it is, to the movie. So we're making decisions on the 2022 movies and 2023 movies now.
Correct.
Right? And the question is, are you going to put your money in that?
So let me ask you.
I think that this Time Warner decision is going to tell a lot. Godzilla's going straight to streaming. All of 2021's budget is going straight to streaming.
Yes, sir.
And I think that what it's going to do is there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to go to the small screen and say, look, let's just try to get a Netflix deal, right? Which is going to change the movies. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of people going to Disney, but I think we're 5 years away from the next, if ever, Avengers for $400 million budget, $2.5 billion box office movie. And if it doesn't last, remember, before the Avengers, we didn't really have this. We had 10 years of Marvel. But before Marvel, we had a bunch of, like kind of, movies that did okay, but not these super major investment. Like
Oh
how
no,
much did
no.
Dark Knight cost?
Yeah, no. Well, I'm sorry. You're talking from the point of view of investment, or from
Yes,
the point of view of box office results?
I'm talking about from the point of view of investment. I'm saying that I think that this is affecting the business model in such a way that I don't think just when COVID is lifted, people are going to rush to writing those big. I mean, it's like real estate. I don't know that people are going to sign $50,000 a month leases when now they figure out everybody can work from home.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I think you make a great point. I really do. I think it will, but so you have a legitimate point of view to think that it may not. I think it will, but it's a matter of opinion. I think it will, but I hear you. I hear you 100%. I hear you
Franz,
100%.
if I can,
Go ahead.
you had asked a few moments ago another reason of why I thought that movie theaters might be going the way of the dinosaur, and
Hmm.
the other half of it is the simple fact. And I've already talked to somebody that works in one of the local theaters. In order for them to survive, according to what James has told me, they're going to have to restructure the inside of the auditoriums because even with COVID gone, they've already kind of been told the theater, the way it's laid out, the auditorium, the way it's laid out, it can't stay like this because of the spacing and what have you that they're already looking at for the future. So that's additional money to part of what Ralph's point is. You're already talking about additional money that has to be spent. You're talking about still trying to get people into that environment. And believe me, I agree with you completely. One of the greatest things in the world to me is going into a theater and seeing a new Batman or a new Avengers movie or what have you. But you're going to have people so far spaced out, even in the physical sense, that the whole sitting together aspect of it is even gone. It's it that to me is part of where the trouble is. You
Also, there's no content. There's no content next year.
yep.
How is the movie theater even going to last if there's nothing to watch really for the next year because everything is going to streaming?
Streaming, yeah. What they should do is, the truth is, as much as I want to see some of these movies, they should just hold off until they can be viewed in a movie theater.
Yeah.
But
They can't.
Kevin, you make another great point as well. And listen, the bottom line, I hear you, both of you guys, and the reality is life is changing. We're going into a new generation. Movie theaters were already beginning to have to adapt. They were doing the couches and there were some movie theaters, believe it or not, that had beds in them. Um, so, so so that industry had to adapt. But eventually, you're right. As things are moving, not just with COVID, but that experience is eventually going to go away, and things are changing for the better. But now, for the interest of time, we're closing off. So let's do closing thoughts. What are we saying? What's your thing, Ralph? What do you see? What do you hope? Where do we see? Where do we go from here?
I think that there's always room for a great story. And I think that the work is to try to keep promoting that because if people see something working, they'll follow it.
I agree with that 1,000%. By the way, I agree with that 1,000%. Yeah, Kevin, what do you think?
Well, as I've said with previous shows, and your brother just kind of put the capper on it. It stick with your source material. Uh, Stick with what works in the classic sense of your characters. You can create new ones. I fully believe that you can create new characters, but you have to have something to allow the new characters to be a part of and to be springboarded into those environments.
Yeah.
It, just saying here's a new book kind of thing, the way that Kirby and Stan Lee and Neil Adams and others from the past did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that doesn't work the same way anymore. That's why I said you have to use the platform of a lot of the classic characters to bring in new ones. But at the end of the day, I do think comics will continue to exist and maybe in a different form, whether it's the digital format or even some of them being adapted as full-blown animated shows. But again, stick to the source material, and I think you'll hit a home run.
I listen, I couldn't agree with both of you more. I really genuinely couldn't. And that premise of stick to the source material is what gives me hope, because I believe in that. The source material is so good that if you tap into that, you can do another 50 years, literally another 50 years. There's enough material there to do 50 years of good stuff. And so the question becomes, will they adhere to that source material? Will they bring that source material to life? Or will they continue to reinterpret it and dilute it into something that people eventually lose interest over? That's the question. And we can only wait and see what happens with that. But listen, guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any comments, feel free to post them. If you agree or disagree, let us know. And subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
All right. See you guys.
All right.
All right, man.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Hey, look! It's Spider-Man!
The dynamic duo return next week. Don't miss it.